Shiv Parvati Vivah Katha, Part 1, The Flame of Devotion. In the cradle of the mighty Himalayas, where the rivers sing hymns and the winds whisper mantras, a daughter was born to King Himavan and Queen Manaka. They named her Parvati, the daughter of the mountain. She was not like other children. Her eyes held the silence of ancient wisdom, and her smile echoed a warmth that calmed even the most restless heart. From a very young age, Parvati was drawn to meditation, to the murmur of the rivers, to the stillness of the snow-peaked cliffs. And in her heart always sat one name, one form, one love, Shiva. She would sit for hours beside the sacred stones, drawing pictures of him with her fingers on the earth. Her fingers small, her heart large. Why him? Her mother would ask, gently brushing her hair. Parvati would smile and whisper, because he is the stillness in my breath, the silence in my soul. I've known him longer than I've known myself. Years passed, but her love never faded. It only grew deeper, stronger. A love not born of desire, but of oneness. Not for the ornaments of marriage, but for the truth of union. And yet, Shiva, the lord of destruction, the meditating ascetic, sat high in the Himalayas, silent, still, untouched by the world. His body covered in ashes, serpents coiled around his neck, and eyes closed in a trance that pierced through time. They said he had renounced the world, that he had once loved and lost, that love had brought him grief, and he had vowed never to return to its path again. But destiny does not wait for doors to open. It enters even when walls are built high. Narad Muni, the divine sage, visited King Himavan's court one day. Seeing Parvati offer flowers at a Shiva lingam carved in stone, he smiled. He saw in her the light of 1,000 suns hidden behind soft eyes. You are born to awaken him, he said, to complete him. You are Shakti. Parvati folded her hands. But he does not see me. He sits in silence, lost in worlds beyond. Narad smiled. Then let your silence call to his. Let your love become your prayer. And so began a penance that the heavens had never witnessed before. She gave up her palace, her silk robes, her golden plates. She walked into the wild forests, where thorns kissed her feet and cold winds tested her will. She sat beneath a tree, eyes closed, breath slow, chanting only one name, Shiva. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Her body grew thin, but her spirit blazed like fire. Animals sat beside her. The trees bent low as if to shelter her. Even the sun seemed gentler around her feet. And in the stillness of her penance, something stirred. Far away, deep in meditation, Shiva opened one eye. For a moment, time paused, but he closed it again, and the heavens, Indra and the gods grew restless. Karakasura, the powerful demon, had gained strength. It was said that only the son of Shiva could destroy him. But how could that happen, when the Lord had no desire to marry, no desire for union? He turned to Kamadeva, the god of love. You must awaken him, he said. Only you can, Kamadeva trembled. He is Mahadeva. He is fire. If I go near him, duty stood taller than me. His sugarcane bow and flower-tipped arrows, Kamadeva crept into Shiva's robe of meditation. Spring bloomed around him, and the scent of longing filled the air. With trembling hands he drew his bow, aimed an arrow of desire, and released it. The arrow struck. Shiva's eyes flew open. The air turned electric. The birds stopped singing. The flames rose from his forehead. His third eye opened. And in that instant, Kamadeva was reduced to ash. The world shook. The gods hid. But Parvati sat still, unaffected. Her love wasn't born of desire. Her prayer had no selfishness. She didn't flinch, didn't cry. She only closed her eyes and whispered, Shiva. Something within Shiva changed. Look at her. Truly look beyond her body, beyond the world, into the soul that had waited for him across lifetime. He saw not a woman, but Shakti herself, the energy that moves creation, the force that gives meaning to stillness. He turned to her and asked, why do you wait for me, O Devi? Do you not see what I am? A yogi, beggar, covered in ash. I own nothing. I am nothing, Parvati smiled, her voice softer than a breeze. And yet, you are everything. Shiva closed his eyes. I have loved before, and that love was taken from me. I buried it with fire. I cannot walk that path again. She stepped closer, hands folded. Then let this love be different. Not something you hold, but something that holds you. I am not here to complete you, Shiva. I am here to remind you that even the destroyer needs to be held. For the first time in ages, silence felt full. He did not speak, but in that silence, the seeds of destiny had begun to sprout. He vanished into meditation again, but this time, his heart wasn't empty. Parvati returned to her penance, this time not out of longing, but of knowing, because love that is destined does not chase. It waits, quietly, patiently, like the river that knows the ocean will call one day. The winds carried her name across the mountains. The trees whispered it to the sky, and in the hollows of time Shiva sat, still, silent, but no longer untouched. He had seen the flame, and it had not scared him. It had healed something ancient. It had begun something eternal. Part 2, the awakening of union. Parvati's penance had turned the mountains into temples, her silence into song, and her devotion into fire. And somewhere, deep in the heart of that fire, something melted. Shiva emerged from meditation, not with rage, not with sorrow, but with stillness. Not the stillness that escapes the world, the stillness that listens to love. Stood atop Mount Kailash, eyes half closed, heart open for the first time in ages. Beside him stood Nandi, his loyal bull, and the Ganas, his peculiar loving boots, preps, yogis, and souls of every kind. I have seen her, he said softly. The sky trembled. The moon on his head glowed brighter. She is not just a woman. She is Shakti, my other half, my forgotten breath, my unspoken word. The Devas smiled. The Rishis bowed. Even time paused, for it knew the moment had come. Shiva walked through the wind, his matted locks flowing like rivers of eternity. He carried nothing, wore nothing royal. His body was ash, his ornaments were serpents, his clothes were the sky. But when he reached the forest with Parvati, he folded his hands. Parvati opened her hands. He didn't speak at first. Neither did she. Some love does not hear words. Some recognition is older than me. And he said, Devi, your love has brought me back from life after silence. If you are still loving, I am loving. Not as a king, not as a god, just as I am. Parvati looked in his eyes, tears and fire. You were always mine, even when the sun, the wedding of the air. The universe prepared with the stars themselves in the way. Oceans sang, clouds danced. Even flowers bloomed. Vishnu, the sustainer of life, took the role of Parvati's brother. Brahma prepared the scriptures. Narad Muni sang joyous hymns across the three rooms. The path of divine love is never without trials. When Queen Manaka saw the group's procession that was to arrive, she gasped. They said that Mahadev was a god. She was one. And this, we saw ghosts and spirits gazing, some in skull, some in wild eyes. And we knew one, thousands of bones, mashed by the night. Brahmas shouting praise. Snakes slither in the water. Then was flickering in the air. Is this a wedding or a funeral? She exclaimed, but Parvati smiled serenely. This is true. This is love. I need no gold, no silk, no royal procession. I asked for Mahadev, and he has come as himself. She stared down at the chambers of love, looking on the jewelry of the wedding race. When Shiva saw her, even the moon paused. She was not just a god. She was creation herself, walking in rhythm with eternity. They stood together, Shiva, bare and wild like a storm, and Parvati, soft and deep like the ocean. He placed his hand in hers. The fire was lit. The sacred chants rose. The Saptapadi began. The 7 steps around the flame, the vows eternal. With every step I offer you my silence, he said. And I give you my song, she answered. My detachment, he whispered. My presence, she promised. My stillness, my strength. And when the 7th step was complete, he looked at her forehead. With trembling fingers, he took the red vermilion, drawn from the fire, and filled the parting in her hair. The earth roared. The heavens wept in joy. The rivers changed course, because the destroyer had chosen to create, because love had returned to the one who had once given up everything. Because the divine had become one. As Parvati stood beside him, her glow matched the crescent moon on his head. He, the master of time, and she, the mother of life, became one breath. From today, Shiva said, your pain is mine. Your joy is mine. Your truth is mine. Parvati held his hand. And your path is mine. Your silence, your chaos, your light, mine. It was not a wedding of two bodies. It was the reunion of the universe with itself, not just Shiv and Parvati, but Purusha and Prakriti, consciousness and energy, stillness and movement. In every home, in every temple, from that day on, whenever a diya is lit or a bell rings or a devotee chants Om Namah Shivaya, it carries the echo of that wedding. Not because it was grand, but because it was true, and what is true never dies. Shiv Parvati Vivah Katha, Part 3, The Birth of Power, The Victory of Light. Kailash had never been so alive. The mountain that once echoed only with silence now hummed with laughter, with footsteps, with the soft whispers of love. Parvati walked its white paths like the goddess she was, her anklets ringing like distant bells in the temples of the heavens. Shiva watched her with eyes that once saw through time, but now lingered on her smile. They sat together under starlit skies, sharing moments the world had never seen between gods. There were no thrones, no declarations, just two souls, divine, eternal, finding joy in togetherness. But peace, in this world, always awakens the envy of chaos. In the south, far beyond the forests and rivers, a demon named Tarakasura was growing stronger. He had a boon. No one but the son of Shiva can kill you, the gods had said, believing such a son would never be born. For Shiva had renounced family, renounced family. But faith does not wait for time. It walked boldly and incessantly. And now, Tarakasura's power cast a shadow over the heavens. The gods trembled. The earth crackled. And the time had come for a new life to rise. Parvati, who had become in the very heart of Kailash, looked into Shiva's eyes. The world suffered, she said, and only the one created together. Shiva was silent. He who held galaxies with his locks, who carried death in his wings, who emerged close to himself from the world. Now listen. And when the divine moon sparkled joy, not of flesh and blood, but of pure joy. That spark was so powerful, even the fire got hot. The wind tarried, the river cooled, the reeds of the Saravana forest prayed, and there, in the quiet green wood, was born Kartikeya, the commander of the divine army, the flame of righteousness, the child of Shiv and Shakti. His eyes held the clarity of truth. His presence, the force of justice, praised by the six spirits, loved by the angels. Kartikeya grew up with dreams, no purpose. When the time came, he did not ask why. He simply said, show me the way. Do not make me remember that, and thunder. In the battle, the arch sword of the Lord, shaking the sky. Kartikeya stood firm, the spirit of the Lord of blessing rose in his hands. Shiva, the fire of Krishna, the river of not his crown. Oceans held the wind, and Kartikeya speeded from his mouth, where the soil fell. Righteousness the world exhaled, the foundation, and the fire of the storm, the baby flower was the love that had birthed him. Back on Kailash, Shiva and Parvati stood hand in hand. They had not just come together for love, they had come together for Dharma, for the restoration of light. Parvati looked at the world from the snowy cliffs and smiled. When love is true, it creates. It protects. It heals. Shiva nodded. And when it's eternal, it doesn't need to be loud. It just becomes the world's strength. Together, they watched their son become a symbol of courage. Together, they reminded the universe what divine union really means. Not grand palaces, not golden chariots, but a connection that transcends time. A balance between stillness and movement. A promise that when consciousness meets energy, miracles are born. Even today, when the lamps are lit on Shivratri, when the chants rise in the early hours of dawn, when someone sits in silent meditation or sings in the depths of devotion, they touch that same power. The love of Shiva and Parvati, the birth of Kartikeya, the victory of good, the oneness of all things. Because that story did not end with their wedding. It only began, and it lives on in every breath, every prayer, every whisper of the wind that still circles around Kailash. Shiv Parvati Vivah Katha, Part 4, The Eternal Family, The Infinite Balance. life on Kailash had found rhythm. Not the rhythm of routine, but of harmony, where fire and ash coexisted, where silence and laughter echoed through caves of snow, and where the divine had become a family. Shiva, the meditative stillness of the universe, sat under ancient trees, eyes half closed, with the crescent moon resting on his brow. Beside him, Parvati, the pulse of life itself, moved through the mountains like sunlight, tending to life, nurturing the world, and smiling with the grace only a goddess could wear. Between them danced love. Love that had faced lifetimes. Love that had held through silence, penance, and fire. Love that had given birth not just to a son, but to a way of living. The story of Shiv and Parvati was not just about battles and boons. It was about balance. Where Shiva detached, Parvati embraced. Where he dissolved, she created. She cooked for the Ganas. He meditated for eternity. She offered flowers. He wore serpents. She gathered all with her warmth. He protected all with his depth. One day, while Shiva was lost in meditation for days, Parvati sat alone in the chambers of Kailash. Her heart felt a silence, not the peaceful kind, but the quiet longing for another life. A child who would be her own reflection, her own light. And from that longing came Ganesh, fashioned from the turmeric of her own body, given breath by her love and spirit by her will. She placed him as a guardian at her door. "Guard it," she said, "until I return." When Shiva awoke and returned, the boy did not let him in. The divine clash unfolded, not of hatred, but of purpose unknown. In the swirl of fate, Shiva severed the head of the boy he did not recognize. The moment time stood still. Parvati's scream echoed across the realms. Mountains trembled. Rivers reversed. The goddess of love turned into Durga, her eyes ablaze, her power unleashed. Shiva saw not just her fury, but her pain. Her mother's heart. Her divine truth, in repentance, in love, and divine understanding, brought the boy back to life. The head of an elephant, the soul of the cosmos, and the blessings of both mother and father, Ganesh was born again. Not as a mistake, but as the remover of obstacles. The God who blesses every beginning, the first name in every prayer, and thus the Holy Family stood complete. Kartikeya, the warrior, Ganesh, the wise one, Parvati, the mother of all, Shiva, the timeless soul. But even gods are not beyond little moments. Parvati would sometimes sulk, asking why Shiva never brought her flowers. Shiva, the innocent yogi, would pluck stars from the sky instead. They would argue like lovers, laugh like children, sit in silence like sages, walk together through the snowy paths of Kailash, hand in hand, like the first day, like the last. Sometimes Parvati would descend to earth as Gauri, as Annapurna, as Durga, to help her difficulties. Shiva would wait patiently, watching the world with eyes that had seen the beginning and the end. Their love became the balance of the universe. In fire there was stillness. In silence there was dance. In destruction there was creation. And in every temple where bells ring, in every heart that longs for the divine, in every voice that chants their names, Shiv and Parvati are present, not just as gods, but as the symbol of what love can be. Pure, transformative, unbreakable. In a world that changes, their story remains, a reminder that love is not always easy. Sometimes it demands penance. Sometimes it burns. When it is true, it becomes eternal. Kailash standing tall, the moon that never fades, the flame that never dies. Shiv Parvati Vivah Katha, Part 5, The Love That Lives Forever. Close your eyes for a moment. Can you feel it? That silence, that warmth, that gentle presence that holds you even when no one else does? That is them. Shiva and Parvati were never just about a mountain, a wedding, a son, or a war. They were always about you, about the fire you carry when you feel lost, about the calm you seek when the world spins too fast, about the faith that survives even when hope seems faint. Every time you light a diya with trembling hands, every time your forehead touches the ground with a prayer only your heart understands, every time you sit in quiet pain, waiting for something beyond words. Shiva is with you, so is she. Parvati, Gauri, Durga, Shakti, holding your hand without needing to be seen. She is the strength that lets you rise again. He is the stillness that whispers, let go, trust. I am here. Their love is not a story to remember. It is a truth to live by. Because sometimes you'll feel like Parvati, giving your all, waiting, loving in silence. Sometimes you'll be like Shiva, lost in your own world, searching for meaning in the chaos. When those two meet inside you, something beautiful happens. You begin to heal. You begin to remember who you are. that you are divine, that you are whole, that you too are made of fire and ash, of moonlight and courage, of longing and light. So the next time you fold your hands before them, don't ask for anything. Just feel them, in your breath, in your being. Shiva, Parvati, not far, not distant, but right here, inside you, forever. If these words stirred something deep within you, if even for a moment you felt seen, heard, or awakened, then this is your space. This is your sanctuary. Welcome to Universal Spirituality Vibes, where the soul remembers and the silence speaks louder than words. Subscribe to stay connected, not just to us, but to yourself. Because healing, awakening, and truth begin the moment you decide to listen. Share this light. Spread the stillness. Let's awaken together.